Radio Raheem here with Stephen Espinoza. We're here in Sheffield, man. It's the first time I've caught you here, but as you said from the podium, as far as England goes, you guys have been over 3 times, 5 months, and put on some fantastic shows. How does this show, this card, match up with the other two in comparison?
Well, I think on paper anyway, it lines up to be one of the best fights of the year. You've got certainly 2 of the top 3 or 4. If you listen to these guys, I think they think they're the top 2 welterweights in the division. So if it's 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3, it is a marquee matchup. And the fact that we're here in an outdoor stadium, which personally I think, my favorite type of venue, in front of 30,000 people, you have all the ingredients for a really, really memorable night.
Well, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, Box Nation has to be given credit, and Frank Warren for making this atmosphere in England really palpable for boxing, and the fans are so fervent and constantly being fed. So there's always a debate when the fans talk to me here about where the mecca of boxing is now. How are you finding that England now is competing with America or even overtaking America as far as the hub of the fight game?
Well, you certainly can't argue with the kinds of crowds and the kinds of passion and enthusiasm that the British fans have been showing these last couple of years. Boxing probably is at an all-time high in terms of popularity here. Part of that is due to the success that British boxers have had lately, but part of it is just their support of the sport. I mean, this is the country where boxing was started. Now, at the end of the day, the U.S. is, larger country, larger audience, and, historically has been a source of greater money. But if you look at, the size of the crowds, England, and the U.K. as a whole consistently draws arenas and stadiums. It's tough to argue that they're not sort of the hotbed of boxing right now.
I got to take it through a couple of fights that are appearing to be on the horizon that are ginormous. Showtime involved, obviously, in both of them. First of all, we had Floyd Mayweather over here just last week, again on a Showtime card with his fighter Gervonta Davis, and all the talk was the UFC is making a deal with McGregor, and is this going to mean that this fight is closer to happening? So for your sake, knowing that UFC is a juggernaut in the pay-per-view business, how does that fight get broadcast? Where do we see it? And how involved are you at this point in making that fight happen?
Showtime will be involved. The details of, how the fight gets distributed and telecast and producers are still need to be negotiated, but we will be involved. And there's a long way to go. It took a while for UFC to come to a deal with Conor to allow him to participate. So that's a big step. But really now the real negotiation starts. And that's between the Floyd side and the Conor UFC side. And there's a lot of stuff that has to be discussed, everything from rules to financial splits to, every conceivable detail. So there's a long way to go, but there's one less thing that is an obstacle now.
Well, you've obviously said very confidently and definitively that Showtime will be involved. So you've had that conversation with Floyd already. Obviously, he's not under contract, so you've made that decision.
Yes. We've had the conversation. We're going in there as a team. We've supported him. He supported us, and we know the formula to make this a magical event.
And I just talked to Eddie Hearn yesterday. He made huge news saying that they're likely to announce Klitschko Joshua 2 in a few weeks. That, again, on the heels of what was a ginormous event the first time. Obviously, they're hoping to build it to equal or greater potential. But now that you've got the fighter who's won the fight, are you still going to do the split with HBO? And how does this thing now play out with the negotiation for the rematch?
Yeah, there's a lot to be negotiated, still, and not to be purposely vague on it, but a lot of it will depend on where it is and how we intend to distribute it. There will be some sort of collaboration with HBO on it. It very well may end up that they get the live and we do the replay in prime time this time around, or it could be something different depending on what the schedules works out. But again, we will be involved with that one. And more importantly for us, we'll be involved with Anthony, long term, because that everyone sees the potential there, and we're glad to be in business with them.
Boxers are used to dealing with rivals and making deals with their opponents, but broadcasters not so much. How's it been having to split that I guess a baby with HBO and working with them in that way?
I'd like to say that it gets easier each time, but it really doesn't. And that's not because there's any personal animosity. It's just it's Coke and Pepsi dealing with each other, or McDonald's and Burger King. There are different business objectives. There are different ways of doing business, and each time, each side comes to the table with very strongly held ideas about what should happen. So it's a bit of a task to get everybody on the same page. But when you get an event like a Mayweather-Pacquiao or a Joshua Klitschko out of it, you have to look back and say, look, it was worth the trouble.
And lastly, Joshua Wilder, much better fight for you guys, much better fight to make for Americans. What's it going to take to get that fight happening, and why isn't that happening next? I mean, to be fair, I don't hear a lot of people clamoring to see Klitschko and Joshua again. Why not Wilder Joshua?
They had an arrangement, Joshua and Klitschko did, with an understanding about, the specifics of a rematch. So,
that clause is definitely in there, and they had no choice, what you're saying.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So, and the reality, look, it was a close fight. I think Vlad looks at it and says, look, I was a couple punches away from winning by knockout. And then it went the other way.
Can we push Joshua Wilder if he's successful again? Is that definitely?
I think I think what I'd love to see is a unification of the other two titles, which would right now mean Wilder Parker, and then the winners meet at some point in 2018 for an undisputed heavyweight championship. And there's never been a four belt world champion in the heavyweight division before. And that would be, a mega fight.
Radio Raheem in Sheffield with Stephen Espinoza, president of Showtime Sports. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And we can't wait to see you Saturday night for this huge fight. Always delivers. It'll deliver Saturday night.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.